Captain Jake Morrison stood at the front window of the ship Aurora, watching the red planet spin slowly below them. The surface looked rough and empty, with tall mountains reaching up like giant fingers. This was his first time working with aliens, and he wanted everything to go right. The ship had been flying through space for 2 months to reach planet Kepler 442b. Half the crew was human, and half were Zephyrians. The Zephyrians looked like tall, thin people, but their skin was blue and they had 4 arms instead of 2. They were smart and brave. Known all over the galaxy for being good at exploring new worlds, Commander Veltar was the leader of the alien team. He had been doing this job for 30 years and knew more about space exploration than most people. His voice always sounded calm and steady, like nothing could scare him. The other humans on the team respected him, even though he was not. Human. Dr. Lisa Carter was the team's expert on alien history and old things. She had spent her whole life studying different species and their cultures. She was excited about this mission because it was the first time humans and Zephyrians were working together as partners, not just meeting for trade talks. Lieutenant Danny Brooks was in charge of keeping everyone safe. He carried weapons and knew how to fight, but he hoped they would not need to use any of that on this planet. His job was to make sure everyone came home alive. The team had been on the planet for 3 weeks now, going into caves and tunnels. Under the ground, they were looking for special metals and crystals that both humans and Zephyrians could use. The work was slow but steady, and they had found some good things already. Every day, they would take their equipment and go down into a different cave system. The Zephyrians had machines that could see through rock and find what they were looking for. The humans had tools that could dig and cut through stone. Working together, they could explore places that neither group could handle alone. The planet had hundreds of caves, maybe thousands. Some were small and only went down a few feet. Others were huge and went deep into the ground, so deep that their lights could not reach the bottom. Most of the caves were normal, with the kind of rock formations you would expect to find, but then they found something different. It was Danny who noticed it first. They were setting up camp near the Crimson Peaks, a range of tall red mountains, on the northern part of the planet. The peaks got their name because they looked like they were covered in blood when the sun hit them just right. "Hey, look at this," Danny said, pointing at his scanner. The screen was showing readings that did not make sense. There was something big under the mountains, much bigger than any cave they had seen before. Dr. Carter came over to look at the readings. "That's impossible," she said. "The scanner is showing a space down there that's huge. It would have to be as big as a city." Commander Veltar and 2 other Zephyrians came over to see what the humans were looking at. When Veltar saw the readings, his blue skin turned a darker shade. Among his people, that meant he was surprised or worried. "We must investigate," Veltar said. "This could be exactly what we are looking for." The team packed their gear and hiked to where the scanner readings were strongest. It took them 2 hours to find the entrance to the cave. It was hidden behind some rocks and plants, like nature was trying to keep it secret. The entrance was bigger than any cave opening they had seen before. It was perfectly round, about 20 feet across. The walls were smooth, too smooth to be natural. Someone or something had made this entrance, but the strangest thing was not how it looked. The strangest thing was how it felt. Jake could feel something coming from inside the cave. It was not a sound or a smell. It was something else. Something that made the hair on his arms stand up. It felt like someone was watching them from deep inside the darkness. "The readings are getting stronger," Dr. Carter said, looking at her equipment. "There's definitely something down there. The energy patterns are unlike anything I've seen before." The Zephyrians were acting strange. They had stopped moving forward, and were standing very still like animals that had sensed danger. Their 4 arms were held close to their bodies, and they kept looking around nervously. "Commander Veltar," Jake said, "what do you think? Should we go in?" Veltar did not answer right away. He was staring at the cave entrance like it was a dangerous animal. His breathing had become faster and his hands were shaking just a little bit. "We should not enter," Veltar said finally. "There is something wrong with this place. Wrong how? Jake asked. The readings look normal to me. Well, normal for a big cave system. You do not understand, Valtar said. My people have senses. That yours do not. We can feel things that you cannot. There is something ancient in that cave, something that should not be disturbed. The other Zephyrians nodded in agreement. They had all moved further away from the cave entrance, and they looked like they wanted to run away. Dr. Carter was confused. But Commander, you've been in dangerous places before. You've explored alien ruins and unknown worlds. What makes this different? This is different because it is alive, Valtar said. Whatever is down there, it is not just old. It is old and alive and aware. It knows we are here. Jake had never seen aliens act scared before. The Zephyrians were known for being brave. They had fought wars against other species and won. They had explored the most dangerous parts of the galaxy. But now they were acting like children who were afraid of the dark. Maybe we should set up camp here and think about this, Danny suggested. We can study the readings some more and make a plan. But Jake was curious. He had always been the type of person who wanted to know what was behind closed doors. When other people saw danger, he saw mystery. When they saw reasons to stay away, he saw reasons to investigate. He walked closer to the cave entrance and looked inside. His flashlight beam disappeared into the darkness after just a few feet. The cave went down at an angle, like a tunnel leading deep into the planet. I'm going in, Jake said. Captain, no, Dr. Carter said. If the Zephyrians are scared, maybe we should listen to them. The Zephyrians are scared because they can sense something we cannot, Jake said. But that does not mean it is dangerous. Maybe it just means it is different. Valtar came over to Jake, moving slowly like he was fighting against his own fear. Captain Morrison, I have been exploring unknown places for 30 years. I have seen things that would give your people nightmares, but this place is different. This place makes every instinct I have tell me to run away. Then you should run away, Jake said, but I am going in. We came here to explore, and that is what I am going to do. The Zephyrians began talking among themselves in their own language, making clicking sounds that humans could not understand. They sounded upset and worried. They are saying that you are making a mistake, Valtar translated. They are saying that some doors should stay closed. Jake checked his equipment one more time. He had his scanner, his flashlight, emergency supplies, and a communication device that would let him talk to the team on the surface. He was as ready as he could be. I will go alone, Jake said. You all stay here and monitor the readings. If something happens to me, you will know about it. Captain, this is not a good idea, Danny said. At least let me come with you. No, Jake said. If the Zephyrians are right and there is something dangerous down there, I do not want to risk more people than necessary. Besides, someone needs to stay here to make sure I can get back out. Jake turned on his flashlight and stepped into the cave. The air inside was cool and dry, and it smelled like rocks and metal. As he walked deeper, he could hear his footsteps echoing off the walls. Behind him, he could hear the Zephyrians talking in worried voices. But ahead of him was only darkness and mystery, and that was exactly where Jake Morrison wanted to go. Jake Morrison walked deeper into the cave, his flashlight cutting through the darkness ahead of him. The beam showed smooth walls that curved down into the planet like a spiral staircase made for giants. His footsteps echoed in the empty space, coming back to him from places he could not see. The first hour of walking was normal. The cave looked like any other cave, with rocky walls and the smell of old stone. Jake kept his scanner running, watching. The readings changed as he went deeper. The energy signals were getting stronger, but they still did not show anything dangerous. Every few minutes, he would stop and talk into his communication device. This is Jake. I'm about half a mile down now. Everything looks normal. The walls are limestone, mostly with some crystal formations. No signs of life or danger. Dr. Carter's voice would come back through the speaker, sounding worried. Be careful, Captain. The Zephyrians are getting more nervous up here. They keep saying you should come back. Tell them I'm fine, Jake would say. I will keep going for another hour, then turn around if I do not find anything interesting. But as he went deeper, things started to change. The walls were not just smooth anymore. They were too smooth, like someone had polished them. The curves were too perfect, like they had been measured and planned. This was not a natural cave anymore. Jake stopped and looked at the walls more carefully. His flashlight showed lines carved into the stone, thin and precise. At first, he thought they were just cracks in the rock. But when he looked closer, he could see they were symbols. Someone had carved writing into the walls. The symbols were not like anything Jake had seen before. They were not human writing, and they were not Zephyrian writing either. They were something else, something much older. The lines were straight and clean, as if they had been cut into the stone yesterday. Even though they felt ancient. Jake took pictures of the symbols with his scanner and sent them up to the surface. Dr. Carter, are you seeing this? These symbols are everywhere down here. We are getting your pictures, Dr. Carter said. I have never seen anything like this. The Zephyrians are looking at them too, but they do not recognize them either. How old do you think they are? Very old, Jake said. But they look fresh, like whoever made them knew how to cut stone in a way that would last forever. The tunnel kept going down, and the symbols became more common. Soon every wall was covered with the strange writing. Jake could not read it, but something about it felt important, like it was trying to tell him something. After 2 hours of walking, Jake found the first room. The tunnel opened up into a large space with a high ceiling. His flashlight beam could not reach the top, but he could hear his voice echo when he spoke. The room was perfectly round, and the walls were covered with more symbols. In the center of the room was a table made of the same smooth stone as the walls. On the table were objects that Jake did not recognize. They looked like tools, but they were made of materials that seemed to glow in the light of his flashlight. Jake walked around the table, looking at the objects without touching them. One looked like a hammer, but it was too light to be made of metal. Another looked like a bowl, but it was perfectly clear, like glass, but stronger. A third object was a cube that seemed to change colors when he looked at it from different angles. I found some kind of workshop, Jake said into his communication device. There are tools here, but they are not like anything we have seen before. They look advanced, but also very old. Do not touch anything, Dr. Carter's voice came back. We need to study them first. Take pictures and keep moving. Jake took pictures of everything in the room, then continued down the tunnel. The symbols on the walls were getting more complex now, and the energy readings on his scanner were getting stronger. Whatever was causing the readings, he was getting closer to it. The next room was bigger than the first, and it had more objects. There were shelves carved into the walls, and the shelves were full of things that Jake could not identify. Some looked like books, but they were made of metal pages. Others looked like machines, but they had no moving parts that Jake could see. Jake was starting to realize that he had found something very important. This was not just a cave. This was a place where someone had lived and worked. Someone very smart and very different from humans or Zephyrians. I think I found an ancient city, Jake said. There are rooms everywhere, and they are full of things I have never seen before. Whoever lived here was very advanced. The Zephyrians are really scared now, Dr. Carter said. They want you to come back right away. They say the place is dangerous. It does not feel dangerous, Jake said. It feels empty, like whoever lived here left a long time ago. But as Jake said those words, he heard something that made him stop walking. It was a sound like footsteps, but heavier than human footsteps. Something was moving in the darkness ahead of him. Jake turned off his flashlight and stood very still, listening. The sound came again, slow and careful, like something big was walking toward him. Jake's heart started beating faster, and he put his hand on the weapon that Danny had given him. The footsteps got closer, and Jake could see a faint light coming from ahead. It was not the white light of his flashlight, but a blue light that seemed to come from something alive. The light got brighter, and Jake could see a shape moving toward him. It was tall, much taller than a human, and it walked on two legs like a person, but it was not a person. It was made of the same crystal material as some of the objects Jake had seen in the rooms. Its body was clear and blue, and light moved inside it like water. The creature stopped about 10 feet away from Jake and looked at him. It had eyes, but they were not like human eyes. They were deeper, like looking into a pool of water. When it spoke, Jake could hear the words inside his head, not through his ears. "You are not like the others," the creature said. "The Star travelers, who came before you ran away when they felt our presence. But you came deeper. Why?" Jake was so surprised that he forgot to be scared. He had found an alien, but not the kind he expected. This was something completely different from anything humans had ever met. "I came to explore," Jake said, speaking out loud. "My people want to learn about this place. We are not here to hurt anyone." The creature moved closer, and Jake could see that it was not just one being. It was made of many pieces of crystal that moved together like a single body. The light inside it pulsed like a heartbeat. "Your people are different," the creature said. "The others could feel our thoughts from far away. It made them afraid. But you cannot feel our thoughts unless we choose to share them. This is unusual." Jake realized that this was why the Zephyrians had been scared. They could sense the mental presence of these crystal beings, but humans could not. What the Zephyrians experienced as fear, humans experienced as curiosity? "Are you dangerous?" Jake asked. The creature made a sound that might have been laughter. "We are guardians. We protect what lies deeper in the cave. For many thousands of years we have watched. Visitors come to this place. They all leave quickly because they cannot handle being near us. But you are different. What are you guarding?" Jake asked. The creature was quiet for a long time. Jake could see the light inside it moving faster, like it was thinking hard about someone very important, the creature said finally. "Someone who has been waiting for a very long time. Someone who has been hoping that visitors like you would come." Jake felt excited and nervous at the same time. He had come looking for minerals and crystals, but he had found something much more important. He had found an ancient civilization that was still alive. "Can I meet this someone?" Jake asked. The creature looked at him for a long time. "Yes," it said. "But understand that meeting her will change everything. Not just for you, but for your people and all the other people who travel the stars." Jake thought about the warning. He thought about his team on the surface, waiting for him to come back. He thought about all the humans back on Earth who had no idea that he was about to make contact with something that could change their lives forever. "I understand," Jake sighed. "Take me to her." The Crystal Guardian led Jake deeper into the cave system, down paths that seemed to go on forever. The walls around them began to change, becoming more beautiful and strange with each step. What had started as carved stone was now something that looked alive. Plants that glowed with soft light grew from the walls and ceiling. But these were not like any plants Jake had ever seen. They were made of the same crystal material as the Guardian, but they moved and swayed like they were in a gentle breeze. The light they gave off was warm and peaceful, like being inside a church made of stars. "How long have you been here?" Jake asked as they walked. "Since the world was young," the Guardian replied. "We were here before the first animals learned to fly. We watched the planet grow and change. We saw the first visitors come from the stars, and we have seen many more since then." The path began to open up into larger spaces. Jake could see that they were entering a vast underground world. The ceiling above them was so high that it disappeared into darkness, but the crystal plants provided enough light to see far ahead. The air smelled clean and fresh, not like the stale air of most caves. "This is impossible," Jake said, looking around in wonder. "How can all this exist so far underground?" "The Queen makes it possible," the Guardian said. "She shapes the world. Around her, she brings life to dead stone. She has been doing this for longer than your people have existed." They walked for what felt like hours through this underground forest of crystal plants. Jake saw streams of water flowing through channels carved in the floor. The water was perfectly clear and seemed to glow with its own light. Fish swam in the streams, but they were not normal fish. They were made of the same crystal material as everything else, but they moved and acted like living creatures. Everything here is alive, Jake said. But it is not alive like we understand life. Your people think life must be made of soft things like meat and blood, the Guardian said. But life is about thinking and feeling and growing. We do all of these things, but we are made of different materials. As they walked deeper, Jake began to see other Guardians. They came in different shapes and sizes, but all were made of the same crystal material. Some looked like animals, others looked like plants, and some looked like shapes that had no name. They all stopped to watch Jake pass, and he could feel their curiosity even though they did not speak. They have never seen a human before, the Guardian explained. We have watched your people from far away, but you are the first to come this deep into our world. Finally, they reached the heart of the underground realm. The path opened into a chamber so large that Jake could not see the walls on the other side. The ceiling was covered with crystal formations that hung down like frozen waterfalls. The light from these formations was brighter than anything Jake had seen so far. But it was still gentle and warm. In the center of the chamber stood the Queen. Jake had expected to see another crystal guardian, maybe larger than the others. But the Queen was something completely different. She was enormous, rising up from the floor like a mountain made of living crystal. Her body was shaped like a tree, with roots that spread out across the floor and branches that reached up toward the ceiling. The Queen's crystal body was not one single color, but many colors that flowed and changed like oil on water. Blues and greens and purples moved through her form in patterns that were beautiful and hypnotic. At what Jake thought was her head, there was a concentration of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Welcome, young traveler," the Queen said, and her voice filled Jake's mind with warmth and kindness. "I have been waiting for you for a very long time." Jake stood before the Queen and felt very small. She was so large that he had to look up to see her highest branches. But despite her size, she did not feel scary or threatening. She felt ancient and wise, like a grandmother who had seen everything the world had to offer. "You have been waiting for me specifically?" Jake asked. "I have been waiting for your kind," the Queen replied. "Your people are different from all the others who have come to this world. They run from what they do not understand, but you seek to understand what others fear." The Queen's thoughts touched Jake's mind gently, and suddenly he could see images and memories that were not his own. He saw the history of the planet through her eyes, stretching back millions of years. He saw the first simple life forms in the oceans, the first plants on land, the first animals that learned to think. "I am the last of my kind," the Queen said. "My people were the first intelligent life on this world. We grew from the planet itself, shaped by its forces and energies. We learned to think and feel and create, but we never learned to travel to the stars like the younger races." Jake saw more images in his mind. He saw the Queen's people in their prime, building great cities of crystal and light. They were artists and philosophers, scientists and dreamers. They shaped the world around them with their thoughts, creating beauty wherever they went. "What happened to them?" Jake asked. "Time," the Queen said simply. "My people lived long lives, but not forever. One by one they faded away, returning their energy to the planet. I am the last because I chose to stay, to watch over the world and wait for the day when new visitors would come." "Why did you wait for visitors?" Jake asked. The Queen's colors shifted to warmer tones, and Jake felt a sense of loneliness that was vast and deep. "Because I was alone," she said. "For millions of years, I have watched this world turn and change. I have seen life grow and evolve, but I have had no one to share it with, no one who could understand what I am." Jake began to understand why the other alien species had been afraid of the Queen. She was so ancient and powerful that being near her was like standing next to a force of nature. Her mind was so vast that most beings could not handle contact with her thoughts. "But your people are different," the Queen continued. "You do not feel the weight of my thoughts unless I choose to share them. You can be near me without fear. You can hear my voice without being overwhelmed by it. Why are we different? Jake asked. Your people evolved differently than the others, the Queen explained. Most intelligent species develop mental abilities as they grow. They learn to sense the thoughts of others, to feel the emotions of those around them. This makes them sensitive to mental presence like mine. Jake saw images of the Zephyrians and other alien species, their minds connected to each other in ways that humans could not understand. They lived in a world where thoughts and feelings were shared, where privacy was rare and mental contact was normal. But humans evolved alone, the Queen said. You lived on a world where you were the only intelligent species. You never developed the ability to sense other minds directly. What other species see as a weakness, I see as a strength. How is it a strength? Jake asked. Because it means you can choose, the Queen replied. Other species are forced to feel what I feel, to be overwhelmed by my presence. But you can choose to listen to me or not. You can choose to share your thoughts or keep them private. You can choose to be my friend without being forced to do so. The Queen's branches moved gently, and Jake felt a sense of hope radiating from her. For so long I have been alone with my thoughts and memories. I have watched the universe change and grow, but I have had no one to share it with. No one who could understand what I have learned. What have you learned? Jake asked. The Queen's colors shifted again, becoming brighter and more complex. I have learned the secrets of energy and matter. I have learned how to shape the forces that hold the universe together. I have learned how to create life from lifeless stone, how to turn thought into reality. Jake felt overwhelmed by the possibilities. The Queen was offering knowledge that could change everything humans knew about science and technology. She was offering to share secrets that could advance human civilization by thousands of years. But more than that, the Queen continued, I have learned the value of companionship. I have learned that knowledge shared is more valuable than knowledge kept alone. I have learned that the greatest discoveries come not from one mind, but from many minds working together. Jake realized that the Queen was not just offering knowledge. She was offering friendship, partnership, and connection. She was offering to share her vast experience with humanity, to help them grow and evolve in ways they had never imagined. What do you want from us? Jake asked. The Queen's light pulsed gently, and Jake felt a sense of joy and hope that was almost overwhelming. I want to share what I have learned. I want to help your people grow and explore the universe. I want to be part of something larger than myself. And in return? Jake asked. In return, I want what I have never had, the Queen said. I want companions who can understand me. I want friends who can share my thoughts and dreams. I want to be part of a family that spans the stars. Jake stood in the vast chamber, surrounded by crystal light and ancient wisdom, and realized that he was being offered the chance to change the future of humanity forever. Jake stood before the Queen, feeling the weight of her offer. The crystal chamber around them pulsed with gentle light, but Jake's mind was racing with thoughts about what this could mean. He was just one human, but the decision he made here could change the lives of everyone on Earth. I need to understand what you are really offering, Jake said. When you say partnership, what exactly do you mean? The Queen's colors shifted to deeper blues and purples, and Jake felt her thoughts become more focused. I offer to share my consciousness with your people. Not to control or absorb them, but to create a new kind of existence. You would remain yourselves, but you would also have access to my knowledge and abilities. Jake tried to imagine what that would be like. Would we still be human? You would be more than human, the Queen replied. You would keep everything that makes you who you are, but you would also gain new ways of thinking and feeling. You would be able to shape matter with your thoughts, to feel the energy that flows through all things, to understand the universe in ways your current minds cannot imagine. The Queen showed Jake a vision of what she meant. In his mind, he saw humans working with crystal technology, building ships that could travel faster than light, creating cities that floated in space. He saw humans who could communicate across vast distances without machines, who could heal injuries with a touch, who could live for thousands of years. This is what we could become together, the Queen said. Your creativity and curiosity combined with my knowledge and power. Your people could explore parts of the universe that other species cannot reach. You could meet forms of life that other species are too afraid to approach. Jake felt excited by the possibilities, but he also felt scared. What would happen to the people who choose not to join with you? What about those who want to stay as they are? The choice would be theirs, the Queen said. I would never force anyone to join with me. Some of your people could remain as they are, while others could choose to become something new. Both groups could exist together, helping each other in different ways. Jake thought about his team on the surface. Dr. Carter would probably be fascinated by the scientific possibilities. Danny would worry about the dangers. The Zephyrians would probably try to stop the whole thing. I need to contact my team, Jake said. This is too big a decision for me to make alone. The Queen's branches swayed gently. Of course. But know that once you share this knowledge with others, everything will change. There will be no going back to the way things were. Jake activated his communication device, hoping it would still work this deep underground. To his surprise, the signal was stronger than ever. The Queen's presence seemed to boost the device's power. Dr. Carter, can you hear me? Jake said. Jake, thank goodness. Dr. Carter's voice came through clearly. We were getting worried. You have been down there for 6 hours. What have you found? Jake took a deep breath. I found something incredible. I found a living crystal being who has been waiting for millions of years to meet humans. She wants to form a partnership with our species. There was silence on the other end for a long moment. Jake, are you feeling all right? Maybe you should come back up. The air down there might be affecting your thinking. I am thinking clearly, Jake said. Lisa, I need you to record what I'm about to tell you and send it directly to Earth Command. This is the most important discovery in human history. Jake spent the next hour explaining everything he had seen and learned. He described the Crystal Guardians, the underground world, and the Queen's offer. He tried to make them understand that this was not a trick or a trap, but a genuine offer of friendship and partnership. Dr. Carter asked many questions, trying to understand the science behind what Jake was describing. Danny wanted to know about the military implications and whether this could be a threat to human security. The Zephyrians became increasingly agitated as they listened to the conversation. Captain Morrison, Commander Veltar's voice came through the communicator. You must leave that place immediately. What you are describing is dangerous beyond measure. This entity has powers that could destroy your entire species. She does not want to destroy us, Jake replied. She wants to help us. She has been alone for millions of years and she wants companionship. You do not understand, Veltar said, his voice filled with fear. Beings of such power cannot be trusted. They think on scales of time and space that are beyond mortal comprehension. What seems like friendship to them might be slavery to us. Jake looked at the Queen, whose colors had shifted to darker tones. He could feel her sadness at the Zephyrians' words. The Star Travelers always fear what they do not understand, the Queen said to Jake. They have built their civilizations on the principle that power must be controlled or destroyed. They cannot imagine power that chooses to serve rather than rule. Jake relayed the Queen's words to his team. The response was immediate and predictable. The Zephyrians demanded that the cave be sealed and the planet abandoned. They spoke of calling their fleet to quarantine the entire star system. You see, the Queen said, this is why I waited for your people. The others would try to destroy me rather than understand me, but you are different. You seek to understand before you judge. Dr. Carter's voice came through the communicator again. Jake, I have been thinking about what you described. The scientific implications are staggering. If this being really has the knowledge she claims, she could help us solve problems we did not even know we had. Energy crisis, space travel, disease, aging, all of it could be solved. Or she could be lying, Danny's voice added. How do we know this is not some kind of trap? How do we know she will not take over our minds the moment we trust her? The Queen listened to these concerns and then spoke to Jake. Would you like me to demonstrate my sincerity? I can share a small portion of my consciousness with you, so you can experience what the partnership would be like. Jake felt nervous about the idea, but also curious. Is it safe? Completely safe, the Queen assured him. I will share only a tiny fraction of my awareness, just enough for you to understand what I am offering. Jake agreed, and suddenly his perception of the world exploded outward. He could feel the entire planet beneath him, its geological processes and energy flows. He could sense every living thing on the surface, including his team members far above. He could feel the movement of spacecraft in orbit and the radiation of distant stars. The sensation was overwhelming but not frightening. It was like being given new senses that he never knew he was missing. He could perceive energy patterns that revealed the fundamental structure of matter. He could feel the thoughts of the crystal guardians around him, their ancient wisdom and patient kindness. This is what I offer, the Queen said. And Jake could feel the vast depth of her loneliness, her hope, and her genuine desire to help humanity grow and explore the universe. The connection lasted only a few seconds, but when it ended, Jake felt like he had been changed forever. He understood now what the Queen was offering, and he understood why the other species were afraid of it. I felt it, Jake said into his communicator. I felt what she can do, and it is incredible. She is not trying to control us. She is trying to share something wonderful with us. The debate continued for hours. Dr. Carter was excited about the possibilities. Danny was worried about the risks. The Zephyrians were terrified and demanded immediate evacuation. And through it all, the Queen waited patiently, her colors shifting slowly as she listened to the humans struggle with their decision. I need to speak with Earth Command directly, Jake finally said. This decision is too important for our small team to make. The Queen enhanced Jake's communication signal, allowing him to speak directly with the leaders on Earth. The conversation that followed would determine the future of humanity. Admiral Stevens, the head of Earth's space exploration program, listened to Jake's report with growing amazement and concern. Captain Morrison, what you are describing sounds like something from a science fiction story. Are you certain you are not being deceived? Admiral, I have felt her thoughts, Jake said. I know this sounds impossible, but she is genuine. She wants to help us become more than we are. And what would be the cost of this help? Admiral Stevens asked. Jake looked at the Queen, whose colors had shifted to warm golds and silvers. The only cost would be our willingness to change, to grow, to become something new while still remaining ourselves. The discussion continued for several more hours, with experts from Earth asking questions and offering opinions. Some were excited about the possibilities. Others were terrified of the risks. But slowly, a consensus began to emerge. Captain Morrison, Admiral Stevens said finally, you are hereby authorized to negotiate with this entity. But proceed with extreme caution. The future of humanity may depend on the choices you make in the next few hours. Jake looked at the Queen, who had been waiting patiently throughout the entire discussion. Her ancient eyes seemed to hold both hope and resignation, as if she had been through similar conversations many times before with other species. What happens now? Jake asked. The Queen's colors brightened, and Jake felt a surge of hope from her consciousness. Now we begin something that has never been tried before. Now we create a new kind of life that bridges the gap between your world and mine. Jake Morrison stood before the Queen and made the decision that would change humanity forever. After hours of discussion with Earth Command and careful consideration of all the risks and benefits, he spoke the words that would begin a new chapter in human history. We accept your offer of partnership, Jake said. But we want to start slowly, with volunteers who understand what they are choosing. The Queen's crystalline form brightened with joy, her colors shifting to brilliant golds and whites. Wisdom and caution, she said. This is why your people are suited for this partnership. You think before you act, but you are brave enough to act when thinking is done. The first step was Jake himself. He volunteered to be the first human to join fully with the Queen's consciousness, to serve as a bridge between her ancient wisdom and human understanding. The process was gentle and gradual, nothing like the violent mental invasions that other species feared. Jake felt his awareness expand slowly, like waking up from a deep sleep. His human thoughts and memories remained completely intact, but now, he could also access vast stores of knowledge about the universe that the Queen had accumulated over millions of years. He could feel the energy flows of the planet beneath him, understand the mathematical principles that governed the movement of stars, and perceive forms of life that existed in dimensions humans had never imagined. "I'm still me," Jake said with wonder, speaking both aloud and through the mental connection he now shared with the Queen. "But I'm also more than I was before." The transformation took 3 days. During that time, Dr. Carter and the rest of the human team waited on the surface while the Zephyrians prepared to leave the planet. Commander Veltar made one final attempt to convince the humans to abandon their plan. "You are making a mistake that will doom your entire species," Veltar said. "This entity may seem benevolent now, but power corrupts all beings eventually. You will become slaves to her will." Dr. Carter, who had been monitoring Jake's vital signs throughout the process, shook her head. "All his readings are normal. His brain activity is enhanced, not suppressed. If anything, he seems more alert and capable than before." When Jake finally emerged from the cave system, he looked the same as always, but his eyes held a depth that had not been there before. He could still laugh and joke with his friends, but he also possessed knowledge and abilities that seemed almost magical. "Watch this," Jake said, kneeling down beside a patch of barren ground. He placed his hands on the soil and concentrated. Within minutes, crystal plants began to grow from the earth, their faceted surfaces catching the sunlight and casting rainbow patterns across the ground. "The Queen taught me to shape matter at the molecular level," Jake explained. "I can create tools, buildings, even living things, just by understanding how atoms and energy work together." Dr. Carter was fascinated. "This could solve every resource problem humanity has ever faced. We could terraform dead planets, create food from basic elements, build cities in the vacuum of space," but the Zephyrians were horrified. They saw Jake's new abilities as proof that he had been corrupted by an alien influence. Within hours of witnessing his demonstration, they packed their equipment and left the planet, broadcasting warnings to every species in the galaxy about the dangerous entity humans had allied themselves with. "Let them go," Jake said, watching. "Their ships disappear into space. They cannot understand what we have found here because their minds are not built for it. But there will be others who are curious instead of afraid." Over the following months, more humans arrived on the planet. Some came as scientists eager to study the Queen's knowledge. Others came as volunteers willing to undergo the same transformation that Jake had experienced. Each person who joined with the Queen's consciousness retained their individual personality and free will, but gained access to abilities that previous generations of humans could never have. Imagine Dr. Carter was among the first volunteers. Her transformation enhanced her already impressive intellect, allowing her to understand scientific principles that had been theoretical mysteries for centuries. She became the first human to truly understand how consciousness could exist in crystalline form, and she helped develop the protocols that would govern future partnerships between humans and the Queen. "The key is choice," Dr. Carter explained to the steady stream of visitors who came to study the phenomenon. "The Queen never forces her consciousness on anyone. The partnership only works because both parties choose to participate willingly." Danny Brooks was more reluctant, but eventually he too chose to join the partnership. His military training, combined with the Queen's ancient wisdom, made him an ideal candidate for exploring the more dangerous regions of space, places where other species feared to go. "I can sense hostile intentions from light years away," Danny explained. "But more importantly, I can communicate with forms of life that would be completely alien to unenhanced humans. The Queen has introduced me to energy beings, silicon-based life forms, and creatures that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." As word of humanity's transformation spread throughout the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some species, like the Zephyrians, avoided human space entirely, declaring it contaminated by dangerous influences. They spread stories about humans who had been corrupted by an ancient evil, warning other species to stay away, but other species were curious. Younger civilizations, particularly those that had not yet developed strong psychic abilities, began seeking out human contacts. They wanted to learn how humans had managed to form partnerships with beings that other species considered too dangerous to approach. The first major breakthrough came when human explorers made contact with the architects, a species of energy beings who lived in the cores of stars. Previous attempts by other species to communicate with the architects had failed because the energy beings' thoughts were too intense for most organic minds to handle. But humans, enhanced by their partnership with the Queen, could interact with the architects safely. The architects have been trying to share their knowledge of stellar engineering for thousands of years, Jake reported after his first successful communication with them. They can teach us to build Dyson spheres, to harness the power of black holes, to travel between galaxies using controlled stellar explosions. But they needed partners who could handle direct contact with their consciousness. This pattern repeated itself across the galaxy. Humans became the bridge between biological and non-biological intelligence, the translators who could communicate with forms of life that other species found impossible to understand. Crystal beings, energy entities, quantum consciousnesses that existed in probability clouds. Mechanical intelligences older than most star systems, all of them welcomed contact with humans, who had learned to expand their consciousness beyond biological limitations. Within a generation, human space had become the diplomatic center of the galaxy. Species that had been isolated for millions of years because of their incompatible forms of consciousness could now communicate through human intermediaries. Trade agreements were negotiated, scientific knowledge was shared, and conflicts were resolved through understanding rather than force. "We have become what the Queen always hoped we could be," Jake said, standing in the crystal chamber where it all began. He was no longer the only human-queen hybrid. Thousands of volunteers had joined the partnership, each bringing their own unique perspectives to the collective consciousness they shared with the ancient being the Queen herself had changed through the partnership. Her loneliness had been replaced by joy, her isolation by connection. She had learned human concepts like humor and creativity, adding them to her vast store of knowledge. In return, she had given humanity the tools to explore parts of the universe that had been closed to them before. "I am no longer the last of my kind," the Queen said, her thoughts touching the minds of all the humans who shared her consciousness. "Through our partnership, my people live again, but in a new form. We are something that has never existed before." Biological creativity joined with crystalline permanence, organic curiosity enhanced by ancient wisdom. The cave that the Zephyrians had refused to enter had become the birthplace of a new kind of civilization. Human colonies throughout the galaxy featured the same crystal technology that the Queen had perfected over millions of years. Cities grew like living things, adapting to their environments and the needs of their inhabitants. Spacecraft that could travel faster than light carried human explorers to the most distant corners of the universe, but perhaps the most important change was in humanity's role in the galaxy. They were no longer just another young species struggling to find their place among older civilizations. They had become the mediators, the bridge builders, the ones who could bring together forms of life so different that they had never been able to communicate before. Jake Morrison, the man who had walked alone into a cave that aliens feared to enter, had discovered more than just an ancient queen. He had discovered humanity's true purpose in the universe, not to conquer or to compete, but to connect, to understand, and to help other forms of consciousness find common ground in the vast darkness of space. The galaxy was no longer a collection of isolated species afraid of what they did not understand.